What I like to say is in 2020, we won the lottery. And what I mean by that is people become more of who they are, right? If you're playing the lottery for scarcity reasons and because you want instant gratification, it's not going to change you. Money doesn't change people. It makes them more of who they are. So what happens is if you're already coming from that, eventually you're just going to lose it all most of the time, and you're going to become more of who you are. Again, there's no judgment. That's what happened during Rona. Most of us became more of who we really were, right? And at the end of the day, we had to look ourselves in that mirror, and some of us didn't like what we saw and we kept with it. And some of us didn't like what we saw and we wanted to change it. That's what I noticed about myself and about others that I was surrounding myself with, was like, we all just started becoming a little bit more of who we really were.
Welcome to the Exercise is Health podcast, where we're talking about exercise, health, and the interconnectedness of the two. We are your hosts, Charlie
and Julie,
and we will be coming to you every single week from our studio, Muscle Activation Schaumburg. Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Exercise is Health podcast. We are your hosts, Charlie
and Julie,
and we are coming to you from our studio, Muscle Activation Schaumburg in Schaumburg, Illinois. Now, at Muscle Activation Schaumburg, we believe your health is your most valuable asset. Your health is one of the biggest influencers of the quality and quantity of time that you have. And while there are many aspects of health, our expertise is exercise. Exercise has been proven time and again to not only improve your health, but also increase your longevity and improve your quality of life. But we know that exercise is not the only piece of the puzzle, and that is why we are bringing you a phenomenal guest today, none other than Dave LoSavio. Dave LoSavio is a 25-year salesperson turned personal growth enthusiast and creative entrepreneur. His deliberate daily practices enable him to live beyond default and show up his best self for family, friends, clients, coworkers, the marketplace, and Team Human. Together, we will double down on our purpose, level up our habits, and make 2021 our best year yet. Dave, thank you so much for joining us, and welcome to our show.
Thank you, Julie, and thank you, Charlie, for having me as a guest. I've been anticipating and looking forward to this for months, and I am honored and grateful to be here. So thank you so much.
Likewise, it is our pleasure for sure. We're very excited about this conversation.
I see it's all smiles. I love being around you guys. Like the first time I met both of you, I remember when I was introduced to you, Charlie, somebody came up to me at an event and they said, "Oh, there's this guy over here you might get along with." I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He goes, "Well, he's really into his daily habits, and I think he drinks a certain amount of water every day and he tracks it." And I'm thinking, oh, he tracks his water? I think I got to get to know this guy.
There we go.
That's hilarious.
Well, Dave, it goes both ways. I remember when Charlie, because you and Charlie met before I met you, and Charlie and I always eat lunch together. So we sat down to lunch and Charlie goes, "So I met this guy. His name's Dave. He's cool." I was like, "Oh, okay." You know, like he journals every day and he tracks his water and he does his, his morning routine just like me. And I was like, wow, you guys are like two peas in a pod. That's so great. So we are excited for you to be here because we've also had the honor of hearing you speak a few times. And we think that your message, your story, and I know there's some new additions to your story since we last got to really connect, which you're going to be sharing, I know, today. But I know your story and your message will really help our listeners hone in, especially on different habits to create, to really, just like in your bio, to make 2021 the best year yet.
Definitely. So Dave, why don't you tell us more about your story and kind of your personal background, maybe starting from high school and then kind of working into, your professional life and kind of leading us to where you are present day.
Cool. And I do appreciate you asking because my story, when I look back at growing up, normal kid, right? Like went to normal schools, live in the northwest suburbs of Chicago all my life. My dad worked most of the day. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. I do remember at an early age, like being challenged with finding who I wanted to be around. You're awkward in high school, right? Or especially junior high, right? Guys start to become guys and girls start to become women. So you start to go through these changes. I had a pretty normal growing up, listened to a lot of music, went to high school, and then I kind of messed around for a little while, went to college. And what I'll say is when I got out of college, I chose to take the default route. And what I mean by that is go to school, get a job. Next thing is save up to move out of your parents' house, right? Typical Northwest suburbs thing to do. And then begin the journey of starting a family, and then save up as much as you can in retirement to have a happy life once you retire at 65 or 70 or whatever the age is. And although I went down that path, you could tell that I wasn't aligned with it. I did radio for 2 years, live radio on 94.3 WJKL. I also did a podcast for 2 years in 2010 to 2012 when like the only people doing podcasts were like Joe Rogan, Mark Maron, weren't many people doing it. So as a 25-year salesperson, I sold packaging. I started with a family business. We sold it. And I had since worked for my third packaging company until recently. And exactly about 6 years ago, Thanksgiving weekend of 2014, something happened. And it wasn't like a big bang. It wasn't like a big, oh my gosh. I just woke up in the morning and I was like, I'm not very fulfilled in my life. And there's got to be something different. So I decided to make a slight change, right? Slight edge habit. So I decided to stop drinking for a month. 6 years later, I'm still not drinking. For me, it was a distraction. For me, I felt like I drank too much and it wasn't serving my path. This is not to judge how others lead their lives. I know we're all doing the best we can with what we have at this time. So along that path, I started reading more. And I started recognizing other distractions I had in my life. One of them was television, right? I'd like binge watch Law and Order for like 8 hours on a Saturday. I don't know what that was doing, but it was definitely covering something up, right? So as I started to recognize and eliminate these distractions, I started leveling up on my daily habits, being actively pursuing people that were smarter than me, seeing how I can add value to them and wanting to hang around with them, right? Bluetooth off of these people. Here was a big shift of mine too in the last 6 years. For a little while, when I made these changes, I started feeling like a victim, right? You get that like hero victim mentality, victim villain. And it was like, well, I made all these changes and how come more people don't like me? Or how come I'm not making more money? It was like, all these like weird thoughts came in, but it was part of my path. And then another day I woke up, not like a big boom. And I said, you know what? It's not about me, man. It's about getting up and doing the right thing just because. It's about adding value. It's about leaving people better than when you found them. And it's just about sharing the love and sharing your gifts with the world. And once I made that shift, that was like the next jump up. So fast forward now to 2020, that was 2014, still in my 25-year career in sales, doing great, making great money, have great insurance. And last year I started thinking about it more like, I don't know if I'm going to be doing this for the rest of my life. And then I started reading more books in my book club, right? Books like The Alchemist, books, it's all about the personal legend. It's a great story. I recommend it to everybody. The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace D. Wattles from like 1910. And The 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership. That's another big book I'm into. So I just started reading like all these other books and recognizing that, I don't know if this packaging sales is for me anymore. And then Rona drops in March. And then a week later, is my 50th birthday, right? Now, mentally, I've tricked my mind into thinking that I'm 40 because your mind really doesn't know. It only knows what you tell it. But years-wise, I turned 50, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to do this anymore. There was something in me that was brewing, and then I started thinking about it. I'm like, you know what? These last 6 years of leveling up my habits, figuring out what my purpose was, going through a bunch of personal development and actually implementing these habits, which we're going to share later. This is what I've been practicing for. I've been practicing for a big fist just to go boom, hit me in the face. Part of it was Rona. Part of it was things happening with my job. Part of it was turning 50. And then a few months later, somebody looked at me and is like, don't put it off until you jump on your job. You got to quit now. And I was like, oh, that's painful. So that weekend, I put in my 60-day notice to myself, the world, and God, and the marketplace. And then I picked my 2-week notice. I did that. And then a couple of weeks ago, October 30th, I had my last day in my packaging career, which I will say was the best month that I've ever made in my life. Wow. So it's kind of funny how I had my largest month, right? Jerry Seinfeld quit with his show when they were on top, number one rated show. I walked away with gratitude, with love, and with service. And I'm so happy, not only for my clients after all these years, not only for creating so much abundance, but just being able to serve. And the last 60, 30 days, 2 weeks, to really come from a place of wanting to give my previous employer a good leeway into my accounts. Like, I don't want anything when I leave. Here they are. We're going to make it the best so you can just transition them. And that's what we did. And that was like a couple weeks ago. So I'm like fresh out of a job.
Congratulations.
Yeah, congrats.
Yeah, right? Congratulations, right? No job. I'm on this entrepreneurial roller coaster. What I love about the situation is a few things. Number one, all these habits that I was doing on a daily basis, I'm finally getting to put them into practice for something really, really big. Something else I realized for me, not for everybody else, but for me, as long as I'm adding value to the world, as long as I'm creating abundance, and as long as I'm leaving people better than I found them, it's not so much what I'm doing, it's more important who I'm doing it with. You are the combination of the 5 people you surround yourself with. Really, really important. That's another habit of mine. So that was one of the things I recognized. Number 2, I just didn't want to sell a tangible product from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday anymore. It just wasn't my gig. And number 3, it was really, really important for me to connect with people on a deeper level into a couple areas that I'm going into now versus selling a tangible product, which was just more of a means to an end. And again, it's okay. Like, I'm all grateful for what I've done for the last 25 years. I have no bad feelings at all. And it was tough to leave. So here we are now, 2 weeks later. And I appreciate you bringing up the speaking event that I did right before everything dropped, right? February 27th, 2020.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Dave, man, there are a number of things that I really enjoy about your story. The first thing that I want to bring up is how you talked about, like, before there was even I'm going to say like a need for you to do the habit stacking, you were already implementing that. And then what I thought was really cool is that when everything hit the fan, you said, hey, you know what? I've been practicing this. This is why I've been practicing it. I don't do it just so I can say, oh, I've meditated X number of days in a row. I do it 4 times like this when everything happened with the pandemic. And you kept doing it. You stayed true to your habits, and that is what helped you to get through that time and gain clarity of yourself and of your life and the direction you wanted to head. So I really appreciate that, because I think, for one, not many people spend much time kind of building the habits to begin with. And then secondly, when things do hit the fan, it's like everybody loses their head and they don't know what to do. It's like, you've been spending your whole time, if you've been practicing the habits, you've been spending your whole time building for this. Now it's time to implement. So talk to us about that. Talk to us about, first, what was the thing that continued to drive you to build the habits day after day after day? And then why did you feel like when the pandemic started that it was imperative that you continue doing those habits, because we saw a lot of people when the pandemic started. It's like, okay, I'm stuck at home. I'm not going to exercise anymore. I'm going to start drinking more. I'm going to let my stress take over, all of those things. So what did you feel kind of clicked in your head where you said, yeah, you know what? I can't let that happen. And I need to continue with the habits that I've been building.
I'm so glad that you asked that and you recognized it. So the game is won in the locker room. The game is won on the practice field, let's say, right? So the winners that show up to the game, they already practiced winning before, and they already knew they were going to win in their mind. And it's not about winning or losing. So we have this term called borrow from your future self. And what that means is you act today, you make decisions today like who you're gonna be and who you want to be 1 week, 1 month, 6 months, 1 year from now. And then when you slightly look back, you're proud of the decisions you made and you saw how they served you. There's only one thing that we can control in life, and that is our actions, right? We can't really control our thoughts. Many say that our thoughts aren't even our own. It just depends on the frequency that we're at, and we're picking up other people's thoughts. That's a whole nother conversation. You could control your thinking, but really you control how you react to situations, and you control your actions. You're defined by what you do, not by what you think. There's plenty going on in this mind. So what I did was I saw the opportunity when the lockdown happened. I knew I was going to be by myself, living in my loft, and I've always had a challenge being by myself. And this is since I was a kid. I always wanted to be around people. And I recognized that I'm not going to be around people. So I released my certainty, my significance, and my outcome dependence, and I embraced the unknown. And the unknown was, you're going to be sitting in your loft probably more than a couple months, right? Because I've got some doctors in the family. And I talked to them back in March. So I figured pretty much most of this year, the rest of 2020, I'm going to be hanging out by myself. So that's what I did. I hung out by myself. I got up. I did my morning practice of my meditation, my journaling, my outward affirmations. I did my stretches and my push-ups, did my breathing exercises. I love to do Wim Hof. A lot of the day, I sat on one of my 2 blue chairs that I have in my living room. Mind you, I have no TV, so that's part of it too. I cut out TV like 4 years ago. So I'm not getting any news feeds. So what was going into my mind was the Deepak Chopra 21-day abundant meditation. He put out a challenge like right when in March, right when Rona dropped, and someone sent it to me and I'm like, oh, this is epic. Like, let's get into this. And then I got other people to do it. So there was a time where I would sit on one of my blue chairs for literally like 3 hours. And I explained this story to people and they're like, well, what were you doing? I'm like, nothing. I just sat there. I'd look out the window. I'd read. I'd go do some push-ups. I'd go to the bathroom. Maybe I'd organize a couple things. And I'd just go back there and sit. And I'd be the observer of my thoughts, right? That's Eckhart Tolle. Being the watcher of the thoughts, being the observer of what's going on in your mind, and recognizing that there's going to be some effed up stuff that goes on in there, but it's okay. Like, it's okay. So I recognize that these habits of grounding myself, especially in the morning, and being proactive with my life versus being reactive to what the world wants me to be, that's default, right? I recognized how important it was that I've been doing these habits all along and for me to stick with them. Because when life's easy and you're making money and everyone's cool and you're dating that awesome guy or that awesome woman, like, it's all cool. But the times that you are in a challenge, the times when you get punched in the stomach, the times when things are down, that's when the true self comes out. And I'm going to go as far as say something else too. So there's a syndrome called the lottery syndrome. And what that is most people that win the lottery lose it all within 2 years. And there's a reason for that. because most people, notice I say most, not all, most people that are playing the lottery on a regular basis, it's really for instant gratification, and it's coming from a place of scarcity because you're coming from a place of wanting to win the lottery. And the world doesn't work that way. There's no such thing as instant gratification. 2-day Amazon, Jeff Bezos took 20 years to get there. For that 2-day delivery, right? We see everything pops up on the phone instantly. That phone took forever to get to where it was, though. So what I like to say is in 2020, we won the lottery. And what I mean by that is people become more of who they are, right? If you're playing the lottery for scarcity reasons and because you want instant gratification, it's not going to change you. Money doesn't change people. It makes them more of who they are. So what happens is if you're already coming from that, eventually you're just going to lose it all most of the time, and you're going to become more of who you are. Again, there's no judgment. That's what happened during Rona. Most of us became more of who we really were, right? And at the end of the day, we had to look ourselves in that mirror, and some of us didn't like what we saw and we kept with it. And some of us didn't like what we saw and we wanted to change it. That's what I noticed about myself and about others that I was surrounding myself with, was like, we all just started becoming a little bit more of who we really were. And when I got a little judgy about people, I knew it was just about something inside me, right? Because when you're judging others, it's really about something inside you that you're not aligned with, that you're upset about. So that's something that I really learned during this. Again, surrounding yourself with the right people, having Deepak Chopra that first 21 days starting at the end of March. That was the only thing I've ever done with Deepak. I never watched him on Oprah. I don't have TV, right? I don't care about that. But I saw value in it. Doing the Wim Hof breathing exercises for 10 minutes every single morning. Like, Wim Hof's a badass. I love that guy. I have his app. I haven't even done his app, but I still do that 10-minute breathing exercise 29 out of 30 days a month because it grounds me in the morning. So I found that this was really an opportune time while still recognizing that people are losing their jobs. People are dying, right? How do you hold that balance of honoring what's going on and at the same time choosing what you get to look at? And choosing what you get to focus on. And that's the challenge. And that's where the morning practice, that's where the habits of reading and putting good things into your brain, like the Charlie and Julie show, right? It's what we're on right now. So this was a transformational year for me. It was a transformational year for the world. And are we going to be proud of ourselves when we look back a year from now at the decisions that we made, at the drink that we drank, at the food that we ate, at the whatever we did or whatever we didn't, right? And that's self-reflection. And you got to dig deep because it's painful. The road to personal development, I remember in the beginning, it was all like, oh yeah, this is really cool. Like, we're going to be on this path and we're going to grow. And after a month, it was like, this sucks. Like, this is a lot of work. And it's not fun. Fun tends to be at the moment, and it tends to be short, where happiness is long-term. Usually, what's fun in the beginning doesn't serve you later. But most of the time, what's a pain in the ass right now and you don't feel like doing is going to bring you long-time happiness later. Yeah. And that's another one, embracing delayed gratification, especially if you're a certain age where you grew up with that mini supercomputer in your hand. Everything's instant gratification. Yep. But to embrace that delayed gratification and recognize that saving $100 a week for 20 years, where not eating a certain food for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, or exercising for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, all of a sudden you start to recognize these shifts. But it doesn't come instant. Did that answer a question? Because I talked a lot.
That was so
That was
many,
awesome.
Well, I know that a lot of the kind of the big points you brought up, we're going to probably bring up again once we get into your habits. But I think I get to ask a question about your story. And actually, before we get into the habits, and something you brought up that I see in myself, I see in my clients. But I remember you said you started doing a few habits. I think the first ones were like not drinking and cutting back on television. And you almost felt like a victim in the beginning. It was like, wait a second, I'm doing these things and I'm not seeing these results. And I think that everyone can totally relate to that. And I want to give a few examples in case people aren't relating to it, because you totally can. So for example, you realized in yourself, you weren't quite totally happy with what's going on. So there was a problem. You started making changes and it almost made you feel victimized, because it was like, well, I've already started making changes. Why am I not like kicking booty in my job? I haven't gotten a raise, or, why do I have to do these things? Or, in our field, we work in health, some people get issues with their bodies. Maybe it's an orthopedic, a joint issue, or they get diagnosed with something, or they're struggling with their weight and they realize, they're not happy with it. And they start doing these actions, and they definitely, a lot of people, myself included, when I realize there's a problem within myself or a doctor tells me there's a problem, I feel like a victim. It's like, what? Well, I've already been taking care of my health. I'm coming to MAS. Come on. Like, why me? You brought up this idea of how you resolve that. You kind of made this shift where you realize, hey, it's not about me. It's about me. You said like doing the best I can, or being the best person that I can, or delivering with gratitude and with love. Talk to us a little bit about how did you get out of that victim mindset? Because I feel like that was a huge shift, because everyone, again, feels, whether they acknowledge it or not, that they're a victim at some point when they're trying to improve themselves. And as you just said in your last point of how freaking hard it is when you're trying to change yourself. So how did you shift from feeling like a victim, like maybe almost like you had to do these like life-changing things, and why do I have to start doing these things, to maybe not feeling so much like a victim?
It's so funny how the brain works, because when you're asking those questions, I had all these answers, and now I'm looking at you like, I have no answer. So that's a wonderful question too. And my first answer for that is training and leadership. I am a sponge when it comes to leadership and learning about myself and how to grow. So when I'm surrounding myself with people face to face, or in books, or in podcasts, and they're talking about victim and villain, the idea of walking up to somebody and in the back of your mind and in your soul, knowing that you need nothing from them. I am not here to take anything from you at all. I am only here to add value, to raise the frequency and listen. So shifting from that, I don't know, like, what other reason is there to get up in the morning than to add value to people and to do the right thing? I truly believe that you are instantly rewarded or punished by the value you're bringing to every single interaction. Instantly rewarded or punished. If you're showing up somewhere and it's all about taking and you, and you don't feel good, yeah, you're supposed to feel like shit, because you're trying to take, because you've got something in your back pocket, and people can see right through that. So when you have that in mind, part of it becomes selfish because you want to feel good, right? But I think it's okay, because as we know, when the 2 oxygen masks drop on the plane, what does the steward always say? They say, put the mask on you first, and then put it on your child or someone next to you. So as leaders, as conscious leaders in this cultural renaissance, where we're raising the frequency and raising the level of consciousness on planet Earth, we have to take care of ourselves first. So part of it was selfish, and recognizing that I understand why I'm not feeling good, because there's a little bit in me that wants to take. There's a little bit in me that feels like I deserve. There's a little bit in me that wants that outcome dependence. And it just doesn't work that way. That's not how it works. And it's painful. And it wasn't like a big aha moment. Again, like just me stopping drinking that one day, that wasn't a big aha moment. I was kind of tired of being hungover, and I was kind of tired of just like being unfulfilled. So I'm like, oh, this seems easy because it's surface level. Well, that too, switching from getting out of that victim mentality was also just kind of like I didn't feel like the development was going anywhere. Like I felt like it kind of stopped. And I'm like, well, there's got to be a way. So it must have been the leadership, must have been who I was listening to. And a lot of times when you hear something once, it doesn't sink in. When you hear it the third or fourth time from somebody else, it does sink in. And something just must have sunk in because it pretty much flipped within a couple days for me, that mentality.
That's great.
You got to trust it. You got to trust like what you're listening to and what you're watching is going to affect your decisions later on, guaranteed no matter what. And you just got to trust it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think we both can fully agree with that. Just kind of being very mindful about what's going into your brain and the effect that it has, intended or not, on your outcomes and how you're thinking and your actions from there. Yeah,
I think one really good example of that in Charlie and I's life is sometimes we'll be following an account on social media or something, and we'll be like, you've brought up how annoyed you are at that person like 5 times last week. It's time to unfollow them. Mm-hmm. And it's like, we have this resistance. It's like, wait, am I really going to unfollow them? Because I don't know, maybe getting this negative energy from them is like helping me in some way, but it really isn't. But I think that's like a very surface level example of how we try to help each other with that kind of controlling what is going into your brain and who you're around and things like that.
Definitely. Well, Dave, let's dive into these high performance habits that you talk about and kind of start at, I don't know if there's a specific order, but yeah, let's dive into them and learn more about what they are.
All right. Well, I have a lot of them, and it's always a challenge when people ask me like where to start. So I'm going to start with the morning. Okay. I'm going to start with the morning and say high performers have a deliberate morning practice. This book right here, The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod, says it all. Get the book and read the book. It all goes through what are the 6 habits every single morning that high performers do: journaling, meditation, exercise, outward affirmations. It's your alpha state in the morning. It's creative time. Keeping your phone on airplane mode. Now, mind you, my frame, I don't have kids, right? And I'm not married, so I live by myself. It's easy for me to keep my phone on airplane mode. I get it. I don't turn my phone on until later on because I like my morning practice to be my morning practice, right? It's the bookend of the day. So having a morning practice is by far number 1. Number 2, I would say the 3 pillars of energy. The 3 pillars of energy in my mind are water, deep breathing, and sleep. So tracking your water is very simple to do because there's apps. You don't have to write it down. And you'll find that you probably drink less water than you think. So what does tracking your water do every day? Number 1, it keeps you hydrated, which is really, really important. Maybe you don't notice it that you're dehydrated, but once you start getting hydrated, that's when you'll notice it. You'll feel a lot better. And number 2, it gets you to track. It gets you to just commit to a small habit. It doesn't seem like it'll make a big difference, but it does. So water, number 1. Deep breathing, number 2. Deep breathing is very, very important for so many reasons. You all know that. We don't have to get into it, especially when you're with people and being present, making sure you breathe into your belly and out. Very important. And number 3, sleep. It's not impressive that you're sleeping for only 4 or 5 hours and you're getting up and crushing the day. I get it. It's cool. I'm an entrepreneur. There's days where I'm not sleeping as much. It's not something to be proud of. Sleep is so important. Look at sleep this way. The better the sleep you get, you're just prolonging when you're going to die. Because sleep is reviving you. Sleep is regenerating you. So the better the sleep that you get, the farther out that you're going to die. Look at it that way. It's just prolonging it. So start off with the morning practice, and then we went into the 3 pillars of energy. Another one that I mentioned before is who you surround yourself with. Actively surrounding yourself with people who you want to be like. Actively surrounding yourself with people that are smarter than you. And asking those people for help and for leadership. Successful people love to share their story, and they love to share their habits with you because they're coming from a place of abundance and they want everybody to grow. Now, here's that point now of giving and taking, right? You figure out how to add value to them, right? So if they had a nonprofit, you donate to it. If they're holding an event, you host, you be a part of that event and you help them out to lug things in your car and bring it back and forth. If they talk about a certain subject, you buy them a book and send it directly to them on Amazon or to their place of work. That's how you add value to people. You don't ask them, well, how can I add value to you? Or how can I do something for you? Figure it out. It's 2020. It's not that hard, right? So surrounding yourself with a certain people. The Sunday planner. Pre-framing your week on Sunday afternoon and Sunday evening is such an important habit. You gently look back at the week previous, right? Take your Google Calendar or your Outlook and color code. This is for work. This is for exercise. This is for home stuff. This is for just Dave being. And you color code and you look back at your calendar for the week and you see, did I get enough exercise? Did I not work enough? Did I not have enough practicing the violin because that's what I truly love to do, whatever it is. And then you plan your week moving forward. And when you plan your week, you put things in your calendar for a reason so they stick, right? It's been said at times that Elon Musk breaks his day into 5-minute increments. Now, I'm not saying you got to check in with yourself every 5 minutes. Try checking in with yourself every 3 hours, 6 a.m., 9 a.m., noon, 3, and 6. And look back at those 3 hours and see if you did the right thing. See if you did something that you'll be proud of and that's moving you forward with where you want to. So I think that the Sunday planner is very, very important because it really primes you and sets you up on the week. And it gives you clarity. Because how many people don't feel very good on Sunday because they have to go to work on Monday, right? I've been there. Doesn't feel good. So planning out your Sunday is a great way. Another habit that I found to be really, really important is to read. And I know that it sounds cheesy and it sounds so simple. Jim Rohn said that the fundamentals never change. The fundamentals of life, right? If you got someone that says, hey, I got a new fundamental, what does he say? It's like going to a factory where they say they're producing antiques. You can't produce an antique, right? Jim Rohn, he's epic. So reading, not only does it help your language, right? It helps your thought patterns. It provides you knowledge that you don't already have. But again, it's one of those small habits that when you do on a daily basis, really, really gets a huge benefit out of it. It's been said that college graduates, from the time they graduate to the time they die, on average, only read 2 books the rest of their lifetime. That hurts me when I hear that. Mm-hmm. It hurts me because I want to read more. And it hurts me because that's the default. How hard is it to read 10 pages a day? But if you read 10 pages a day, you just read 300 pages in a month, that's 1 book. You just read 12 books in a year. I guarantee you're going to be a better person by reading 12 books a year. And if it's not that many, I get it, right? We all have a certain amount of time during the day. And there's something else I want to go back to with the weekly planner. Two things, actually. Number one, Google Habit Tracker. Habit Tracker. And what you'll find is you could download, it looks like a spreadsheet, and across the top has the date, and then you put the day under there. You circle what month it is. And then on the left side, you put your habits along the side, and then you put an X in the box under the day to make sure that you did those. It's a way to track yourself, right? It's a way to check things off. It's a way to really recognize and reflect back on Sunday what you've done and what you want to do better. Here's another habit that I've found that's been really good, is learning to say no. Every time you say yes to somebody, imagine yourself on your Google Calendar or your Outlook calendar. Imagine that block of time for you, poof, goes away. Every time you say yes, you're saying no to yourself. And that's a really, really big one, to be able to say no to people, because we all want to please, right? We're humans. We want to please people. So learning to say no is something that I've found works not only in the sense that it frees up time. We only have 168 hours every week. We only have 1,440 minutes every single day. Bill Gates said the only thing I cannot buy is time. If that's not a game changer, I don't know what is. Right. So being in control of your time and looking at your time in another sense as 70% doing and 30% being. So that's like another big nugget, right? All goes back to time and what you're doing. The more you do, there's a point in time where the graph turns the other way and your level of efficiency goes down. And then the doing becomes compulsive, and it might be that you're trying to mask something that you don't want to think about, right? We all have compulsive habits, and working could be one of them. So I think that looking at your time and recognizing that you got to put that being in there. And the being is just meditating. It could be reading. It could just be sitting there doing nothing. What that does, though, is it refuels you. So then you actually become more efficient in the doing. And we all want to be more efficient with what we do. And don't we want to do more in less time? Well, you can do that. We all can do that. Focusing on creativity versus competition is a big pill to swallow, because we're in such a competitive world, and having the mindset that we've got to get these things to have certainty and significance in life. And when you focus on the creativity, your competitive side with yourself just naturally comes out, because really there's nobody around us that's competing. We're all on Team Human. We're all doing the best that we can. And there's so much for all of us. There's so many resources for all of us. It's just a matter of sharing them and getting them there. So here's one that's really, I found that's to be very important, is being aware of your thought and language patterns. And what I mean by that is listen to what you say and listen to what you think. And say to yourself, if I were to die in 5 minutes, would I be proud of that last thought? Would I be proud of that last thing that I said? Recognizing your thought and language patterns. And you start to do that by listening to other people. Because if you don't like what somebody else is saying, as we said before, it's something that's really going on inside you, and you take it as a learning process. Being aware of your thought and language patterns, and then reframing them in a different way that's more productive, that's more adding value to somebody else, that's more getting out of the victim mentality and seeing how you can serve at a higher level.
That's awesome, Dave. I mean, every single one of those is so impactful. And there were so many things that you said that I really, really liked. I just want to highlight a few of them. One is the idea of the fundamentals and just how, just get really good at the fundamentals of your day, the fundamentals of your life, and have those be, the building blocks on which you do everything else. I think that's a really important idea, because I think so often we get wrapped up in, the new diet, the new workout plan, the new app, this is going to be the thing that gets me on track or gets me going in the right direction.
Advanced water solution.
Right.
Extra.
Exactly. And it's just like, just get in the basic, simple, fundamental habits of doing what you're supposed to do, of doing what you need to do, and do that every single day. It's not flashy, but it gets the job done, and it ingrains those habits within you. So like when you're saying, when you get punched in the face with something like a pandemic, you have it so ingrained within you that you can keep chugging along, keep going back to those fundamental habits. And there are changes that happen within life, but for the most part, you're able to just, keep going and get through them. So I really appreciated that sentiment.
Looking for happiness on the outside never works. It doesn't matter about the weather. It doesn't matter about the president. It doesn't matter about how much money you make. In the end, the happiness, the control, the acceptance, and the security, which ultimately fuel happiness, control, acceptance, and security, ultimately control your happiness, can only be found from within one place. That's yourself. And when we look for things on the outside, and like you said, eat less and exercise, I guarantee you're going to feel better. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. And again, we're not saying that somebody's wrong, but going back to those fundamentals in life, it's huge and it's so simple. That's the funny thing. We're just bombarded by distractions. I get it. I'm driving in the car a lot of times and I'm grabbing my phone. I'm saying, what the F am I grabbing for my phone for? Mm-hmm. It's not ringing. It's not dinging. What am I going to do? I'm driving. Mm-hmm. There's nothing to look at.
Right.
But my monkey brain, right, wants to go for that phone.
Yeah.
It's a distraction. There's a lot of distractions, and recognizing those distractions and looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, do I really want to live this way? Yeah. My kid just took his first step and I missed it because I'm looking at the phone. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Right? So-and-so, I might not see this person again. And here I'm concerned about what's on my phone when they're sitting in front of me.
I absolutely love you've brought this up so many times and we hear it all the time. So I just want to reiterate it, but just surrounding yourself by people that you want to be like. I think so often, again, going back to the idea of the victim role, when we're talking to clients or even ourselves, because we always have to constantly be checking ourselves. It's like, well, I could do that, but all my coworkers do this. And I'm like, great, well, go to work, be with your coworkers, but you don't have to be with them extra. You don't have to continue to be like that. But I absolutely love that, because we are so influenced, I think, as social beings, us as humans. It's like the people that we're with, the people that we're talking to, that we're FaceTiming, that we're exposing ourselves to on the TV or on social media, they are a strong influence on what we're doing, on what we find to be acceptable actions or thoughts or ways to conduct our lives. So I love that you brought that up so many times in this podcast. So I just wanted to bring it up again, because it is so true that our little circle of people, of our influences, from whether it's books, TV, social media, strongly influence what actions we do. But I think that if we are really strategic with the people and those things that we pull from, as you said, the one thing we can control is our actions. It almost makes it easier to control our actions, because we're like, hey, these are already the people I like to be like, so that's what they're doing. It's easier for me to make that decision as well.
Yeah. Most of the people I hang out with are like 25 to 40. What did I say earlier? I've fooled my mind into thinking I'm 40 years old. I just turned 50. They're entrepreneurs, they're young, they're cool, they're part of the cultural renaissance, and most of them don't drink, they kind of look like me. You start to realize this, like, oh yeah, like now I get why I am the way I am, because I've actively pursued to be around certain people that were doing things. And that's a great point that you brought up. And for somebody that's just starting on like, hey, I want to make a shift in my life, and I'm kind of afraid, like, I don't want to start cutting out people in my life. Here's the beautiful thing that I learned back in the day about being on this path of growth and development. The path that's not very fun after a few weeks, you start to recognize is people self-serve out of your life.
Right? Exactly.
Amazing. It's amazing. And again, it's not that you're better than them because you're reading a book and you're Mr. or Mrs. Personal Development now. It has nothing to do with that. Once you start doing these things and saying no and implementing, no, Sunday night, sorry guys, I can't go party. I got to work on my Sunday planner for an hour so I can plan my week and be focused. People start to self-serve out of your life. And then other people at a higher frequency that are maybe a little bit more on the path than you, they start to attract and come into your life. It's amazing how that works. You don't even have to do anything.
Yeah.
It just happens.
Well, Dave, we really appreciate everything you've brought up. Now, when our listeners are hearing this and they want to connect with you, how do they find out more about you, and where can they connect with you?
So I have a website, which is DaveLoSavio.com, LOSAVIO, DaveLoSavio.com. And my email is dave@DaveLoSavio.com. I have a very small social media presence. I'm working to scale that up on a different level that's a little bit more mindful for me, where I don't get caught up into it. Of course, making sure I'm adding enough value. And you'll see me around in my shirt and vest around the northwest suburbs of Chicago, just walking up to strangers. I like to call them future friends, and introducing myself and saying, hey, what's up? That's a cool shirt, or that's a cool hat. Tell me about that. And maybe I'll walk up to you one day, right?
There we go, right? Exactly.
Thank you guys so much. It's so awesome just sitting here and watching you two. Like, you both have these big smiles, and I just love being around both of you. And thank you guys for being a part of this cultural renaissance. Like, I remember, how old is she now?
Avalon is a year and a half.
Months,
yeah, 19 months.
Yeah, Avalon, right? When you brought her to the one event.
Yeah.
It was the health summit that you guys.
Yeah, she was 8 weeks old then.
So awesome when she was there. And you two are just, you know what? You're leaders in this cultural renaissance when it comes to health, when it comes to the mind, body, spirit. Like, you guys are there, and you're entrepreneurs, and you're good people in the community. And I am grateful. I love you both. And I'm so glad that I could be surrounded with you guys.
Dave, thank you so much.
Back at you, Dave.
Yeah, likewise. Absolutely. So the question that we like wrapping up with for all of our guests is, Dave, what is your definition of health?
My definition of health: balance and being aligned and authentic and true to your purpose. That's what I would say health is.
I like that. I like that very much. Well, thank you for sharing your time. Thank you for sharing your expertise. It is a pleasure talking with you as always. We can't wait to see you again soon.
Thank you, guys. And if I can leave again on this note, we are all doing the best that we can. We're not here to fix anybody, right? We're not telling people what to do. We're leaders, we're guiding people, and we want to be surrounded by people that will also lead us and guide us. It's a challenging year, and we're all doing the best that we can. I truly believe leveling up on our habits and doubling down on our purpose will make 2021 our best year yet. Start it now. It's November. Get in the groove, start pushing yourself a little bit and digging deep. And I guarantee you can make next year your best year yet.
Let's do it. I'm
Love
psyched.
it.
I'm psyched.
I'm on board, Dave.
Awesome. Dave, thank you so much, my friend. Take care.
We hope you enjoyed this interview that we had with Dave LoSavio, and you are already thinking of ways to implement these healthy habits and daily habits to start improving your health and start implementing the techniques, the new strategies, the new changes in your lifestyle that you're wanting to implement. Dave is definitely the master of daily habits, and we hope that this will help push you into a direction of creating your own daily habits.
So who do you know that needs to hear this episode? Who do you know that is struggling with having consistency within their day. Share this episode with them so they can learn about some very simple things that they can start doing right away when they wake up to get more consistency within their day and start building a healthier life and a healthier day through these habits. And while you're online, if you wouldn't mind, head on over to iTunes and leave us a rating and review. It helps people find this podcast when they're looking for information on exercise and when they're looking for information on health. So if you found value in this conversation today, let us know by leaving us that 5-star rating and review. Well, thanks so much for tuning in. We always appreciate it. Have a fantastic week, and we'll talk with you all next week.